So most salespeople seem to either be recommended to either go out and cold call their target clients directly, or when they do ask for referrals, they're asking their existing clients for referrals. How are both of these approaches flawed within this within?
Say, so you said cold calling and then asking their current clients for referrals.
Uh-huh.
I think that's what you should do all the time is ask your current clients for referral. I even ask for referral if I didn't sell them. Yeah, I know timing's everything. Timing doesn't make sense for you right now. I get that. We can always circle back around, but let me ask you, who do you know the timing would be right for? I think you always, anytime you're in front of someone, you got to explore all options here, right? You got to build,
Uh-huh.
you got to keep building. Cold calling, I done it and I won't do it. It just goes against the grain of everything we know that's successful.
Right, yeah. So, Ian, you ask, how is let's separate those out. You ask two different questions. How is this thing and that thing flawed? And those two things are totally two totally different things. And Chuck just pointed out, one, cold calling is flawed because it goes against everything we found to be successful.
Right.
Depends who you cold call. Like, we'll cold call and build a massive referral network so those people send us business.
Right.
That's we'll cold call that all day long
Hmm.
without a question. But that's not going to customers. You're going, hey, I've got this I've got this to sell. All you're doing is making a connection. You don't you get away from you don't get caught up so much in like the gatekeeper and all the classic, typical, old-fashioned stuff that everybody has always had a problem with. And for ever since sales started, or the gatekeeper or whatever the situation is,
Right.
all the classic stuff that they've been teaching forever, you get around that a lot by not selling, instead going for a referral. So that's one. Workaround, right? So that you said, why is it flawed? Well, there you go. It's flawed because Chuck said we found that and if you've ever sold anything and trying to make cold calls to potential buyers, it's a horrible experience. And maybe I just have too thin a skin, but I also want a good return on my time investment. It's not a good investment for me. I don't like it. It doesn't make for a good life, you know. And if I'm going after freedom, in the essence of freedom today, I want to feel it today. I don't want to, like most people go, well, I'll just do this horrible stuff for my career, and then someday I'll be free. Well, you're never going to get, that's not a great way to. It's not a good return on. It's not a good experience return, right? It's
Right.
just, you don't make the money and you don't have, it's not a positive enough experience. So, no wonder people burn out in sales. No wonder there's so much turnover. No wonder, they're still taught these old horrible ways. And so the other thing you asked, why is it flawed to ask for referrals? And Chuck said, well, it's not. You should always be asking for referrals. I think what you're trying to say is why asking customers why that's flawed. Why, when you make a sale, right? Are you asking when at the time that you make a sale, or just your pool of clients?
Just the pool of clients.
Okay. So you've got clients. Why asking them for referrals is a bad idea, or why it's flawed? Well, it's not flawed. Like Chuck said, it's not flawed. You should ask. I think the way people ask is flawed. You should always be asking them. You just need to ask them in a better sort of way. And usually, in the statistics, right? And Chuck, I agree with Chuck. He said you should always be asking for referrals. Agreed. The thing is, most people don't. It's something like the statistics. I don't know where this came from, but 11% of the time, something popped up in some sales
Yeah.
article somewhere where
Yep.
it's like 11% of the time they ask for referrals, and that's probably, given my experience, what I see around. It's probably right, because it's just an awkward situation. Like if I was to sell credit card processing, I'd go, hey, how they teach you to do it and how it feels awkward is how they teach you to do it. And they would say something to the effect that they go, hey, who else do you know that would like credit card processing? Save money on the credit card processing, just like I did with you today. And two things are wrong with that. One, I sold on price, so I'm asking. And two, I'm asking them for something that they don't have any idea about, and I know that they don't, because I've been down the street before, and I've been told, I don't know, man. Let me think about it. I'll get back to you, and they never do, because they don't know, and So next time I go into a situation like this, I'm going to remember how uncomfortable it was last time and how it didn't work. So I'm not going to ask today. And so therefore, only 11% of the time I'm going to ask. Does that make sense? So,
Mhm.
so, so what we do is we would, so if we go to the pool of clients, uh, and here it's how you ask, if somebody just out of the blue says, "Hey, I'd appreciate you sending me referrals," yeah, I think what I need to build up to it. I need to start engaging with them. Like we call it remarketing. Like every month, we just send out a little, hey, here's a little story. Here's something that's going on. Thought of you, sending you this. And it's like, oh, that's interesting. And then you can work into, hey, if um, you can work into getting a referral. What we do though is we build the little referral programs based on what's called the give back. So part of the fee that merchants pay will go to a nonprofit of their choice. So if we go back to them and go, hey, that organization that you chose, who else do you know that might like to support that organization like you do? And so now you're asking them a different sort of question, a much easier question for them to answer, and a higher probability they're going to give you a referral. It's not about who else do they know that might want credit card processing. It's who else might want to see in the same organization that they care about benefit. So there's a couple things in there that really help get more referrals that most people, companies, that just typically, traditionally, just don't do, and therefore it doesn't work out. But when you do it, it does work out. That makes sense.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
So
yeah,
can
it's
you?
not flawed. It's how they do it is flawed.
Mhm.
Doing it is right. How they do it is the flaw. But it can be quickly figured out
Mhm.
to work.
Can you walk through an example from your experience of when you were selling credit card processing and you're deciding to, hey, I want to start reaching out to recommenders, or how did you go about identifying who you should start targeting? And how did that work when you first started doing it?
Well, the first one I ever got was from a guy who delivers meat. And so he delivered meat to it was an Italian route. His route was to he had like pepperoni and sauce and Italian stuff and that kind of thing. And so I met him. I don't know how I used to mail cards to new businesses, and one of the new businesses that responded was a pizza place, Sam's Pizza in um in San Diego, California. And Sam's Pizza. So I was there, and the meat guy was there, and I said, "Hey, if you know of, and so we got talking, the uh, Sam's son, um, and I and the meat guy were talking, and I go, hey, if you know of anybody, like this, I'd appreciate it if anybody you send over here, I get them, I'll give you $50. And he goes, oh, okay. And so he referred me to a guy up in Vista, California, who ended up getting 3 restaurants. So that's how it started. I thought, oh, okay, well, this is much better than going cold to all these places. Then I thought, well, who else? Who else would have the same kind of clients I have? This guy does. They're all retail restaurants that he goes to. I also thought, okay, well, what else? And I went to I started going to banks, and I didn't know what to say to banks at that time, and I went to the wrong bank, saying the wrong thing, and eventually they turned out to be good. But at first they all shot me down. I thought, well, this maybe isn't good, but I thought there's got to be a way. So eventually, turning the dials, you figure out how to talk to banks. Different banks have different interests. Different types of banks have different interests. Big banks versus independent banks, and so on and so forth. But I went to a point of POS programmers group and spoke. Didn't get anybody there, but ended up getting a guy who also owned a business and who had some connection. So I got it that way. Now and we found civic organizations are okay, but they don't want you to join. Like Rotary, for example, is a really good target, but you don't join those to get the business. They really frown on that. See, there's all kinds of things around that you figure out. But we did find, like buying groups, associations, that kind of thing that has the same clients that we're looking for. We've gotten into software, so you just have to figure out. You test these things, like, all right, make some calls, see how it works, and get the response. And you've got to. It's just like unlocking the lock. You just have to you just have to figure out how to get into those. And some of them are going to give them, or you're going to unlock it quicker. And you're going to find that you can go deep in those quicker. And some that may be wonderful targets you never figure out. But you want to test those. You want to get in and give it a go. I think this would be they have the motivation. It would be good for them, or it'd be good for their clients if they would let me in and talk to them. So how do I get in there? How do I say this? And how do I position it? But at first, it's really lucky if you stumble into it. It usually takes some figuring out. Imagine if you're trying to figure out the combination to a lock. You probably aren't just going to figure it out. But you're going to have to listen to the tumblers and understand how to open it without knowing the combination. Is more of how it works. But then when it opens, now you know how to open every lock like that. At least 97% of them. That's what we found. So once we figured it out and we started contacting, then we bought a list of all these. And when you get really good at this, we found that 97% of everybody that we talked to in this category would give us a listen and go, yeah, okay. And 3% doesn't matter if you're Ed McMahon with the prize van and check for $10 million, balloons and dancing girls, they'll still kick you off the porch. So not everybody's going to say yes. And we've hired people also to do this. Once we figure out how to unlock it, we've hired people to make those calls for us. And I've never seen them quite get 97%. Maybe they'll get 60% and 50% when they first start because they're fumbling around. Even if we hand them exactly how to unlock this, they'll still only get 50% because they're just new at it. And so if you're new at this idea and you're trying to figure it out, well, expect to really, you're trying to unlock the lock. But once you figure it out, it's extremely valuable. And you own the knowledge. You own how to do this. And which is, I don't know if it's priceless, but its keys to freedom.